arrive a bit later, but we've got a time frame we need to stick to, and we've got media, and we'd really like to be able to keep running through tonight. So firstly, before I go anywhere, I'd like to introduce our moderator. This is David Ashton Lewis, Lord Justice David Ashton Lewis, and he's going to make us keep on time.
Now, I'd like to ask you, can you all hear me, even people at the back? Because I don't like using these things, and I would prefer not to. If any of you are hard of hearing, please let me know, and I will move into this thing. My voice tends to boom, and so it helped me as a barrister, and it helped me as a judge. And so how we're going to run this is first courtesy and civility. I'm sure there are some here who totally support this, and there may be some here who don't. Remember, we live in a liberal democracy.
Thank you.
And one is free to disagree, but you do it courteously and with civility. So please just hold that in your hearts and minds as we go through this evening. And what I will do, there are different speakers, and I've been told the allocation of their minutes. So I will strictly stick to that. They will speak. At the end of all the speakers, I will then ask for questions from the floor. Please, in the asking of your questions, remember again, don't take too long to ask the question, and let the answer be quick. You may have one response to it, but then if you would step aside and let someone else raise a question. So I hope it's not too hard for you. This is not a court of law. If it was a court of law, well, it might be different, but I'm glad it's not. It's an information session, and I think the majority of the people here are people who do not support the light rail. Just remember, there are some here who do support it. So be courteous and be respectful. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm not the first speaker, but I've been in a meeting today and I really wanted to be able to get this out to you guys to understand what is happening across Queensland and the Gold Coast, because really this money that we're spending ties into others are missing out in Queensland, let alone other parts of the Gold Coast. So I was in a meeting today with Michael Crandon, and I've been in several meetings with Michael and Mark Hamill at Stages. Mark's given me a list of all they've missed out on at the expense of us getting light rail. Now, this wasn't meant to be a part of tonight, however, Michael was on the news a couple of nights ago and he's very upset. Initially, there was a plan. They are the fastest growing, highest density area in Queensland, not just the Gold Coast. Now, they were promised the council was going to be putting up $11 million, and they were asking the state government to put up the same amount. Yes.
Where is it?
Coomera, Pimpama, all the northern areas of the Gold Coast.
Okay.
So Coomera, Pimpama, Ormo, Jacobs Well, all those places. Yeah. Huge growth, they're massive. And they've even got bad intersections and they've got no footpath connectivity. It's pretty basic stuff they don't have. Now, what has happened from there, the state government was looking at matching dollar for dollar, it didn't happen. And then the state government gave a tick to the service between Ormo and Coomera train station, because that's a really heavily trafficked area for those people. And the other one is a road called Foxwell Road. His words to me, and he was happy for me to quote it, was, Bailey's arrogant words were, if council wants to deliver more buses, they can go ahead and do it alone. 1 year later, after that, 1 year later, they hatched a deal to spend $8.4 million, so dropped in the amount, over 4 years. And now it's come to the point where they've changed it and they're delivering it in stages. They get stage 1 with no time frame for stage 2 or 3. And this is one of the highest growth and the high population areas of the Gold Coast, doing without, for us at the moment, to have 6.7 kilometres of light rail in stage 3, and you're going to hear a little bit later about people who are suffering that right now. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to run that by you before we move along into Mark McGovern. Dr. Mark McGovern.
Okay. For quite a few years, I was an honorary advisor to Main Road, and I've got a lot of time to Main Road, as they were then. The world's changed, and I think there's...
I think you have to touch the microphone, yes, and talk louder.
You're right. So, okay. I think we've now gone. So I'm coming at this from the wider picture, and the various slides you'll see. Can we bring up the slide, please? Can we just go to the slide, please?
That's your first slide.
No.
There you go.
Okay. So, next slide, please. Okay, let's get going. I just won't mention these stuff anyway. That's all. Okay, key points. It's time for renewal, right? We've got major problems. It's time for renewal, and I think it's time to get serious about how we spend our money. That's my real message. Next, please. Okay, first thing, light rail is not part of the Olympics bid. It never was. It's time to stop the rubbish saying it should be. It's not in the map. There's your match. If you look at the green with Ravina in it, the little house, that's the southernmost thing to do with the Olympics. So why on earth do people think it has to come this way? Right? So that's the first thing. The Olympic bid, that's the contractual basis. There is no obligation at all with the Olympics for any light rail. Next please. Okay, this is a bit of a mess, but the key message is at the bottom here. We're going to spend $1.5 billion over that, the way we're going, and $3 billion, it's 2.5 at the moment, but it's going to go to 3 or more. Yeah. So we're going to spend $4.5 billion for 15% of the people, and up the north we've got 85% of the people in Gold Coast City getting some millions. Right? Be hundreds of millions, but so this is a problem of city development. It's not just about what's happening later. We are putting our resources into a very narrow area. Next please. Okay. Okay. Okay, the mode choice is pay benefits and costs, that's right. Let me just slow down. We're now going to the benefit cost analysis, which is the basis of evaluation. This is the business case, right? Now, while we're looking at these, you think about if you went to the bank and said, I've got a business that you lend money to. And think about what you see here, and would you, if you were the banker, give the government money? Okay, the mode choice, back please. The benefits, the mode choice is okay. They went through and said light rail buses and all sorts of things, and we don't know actually how they translate light rail. It's okay, we don't know, and it looks suspicious, but anyway. The key points coming up, the benefits quoted are different and much greater than the revenue raised. Right? So the revenue in this is not great, but the benefits are supposed to be wonderful, as we'll see in a second. What we're doing is making some unbankable effects bankable in terms of justifying this in a financially responsible way, I suppose. Misrepresentations, risk unaddressed are all there. The cost basis, the most important one there is the third one. There's no review, even though the costs have already risen by 70%. So you just want the bank say I want to buy an $800,000 house, well, it's now up to $1.5 million. Also, there's a public-private partnership behind this. In the summary of the business case, there's a figure of $700 million which just appears out of nowhere. And I'm not sure what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's to do with the public-private partnership arrangement. And there are major risks that ignore it. Okay, thank you. Okay, cost benefit. The ratios and the nets. The 2019 benefit was 723, the cost was 668. We calculated it was positive 1.1, and the net effect was $55 million. Now, I've gone through and taken out the things that have to do with lifestyle or otherwise, and come back to actual dollars. There's actually $301 million of actual money. And I call the rest of the stuff doozies, as in dollar of Oz. And Oz, you might remember, was a lovely movie, The Wizard of Oz. Right, we can go into all that. It's also a way we call ourselves, home as Oz. So but we've got these things where we have aspirational benefits, which are not bankable. 2023, our situation is that we're up to 1,200 million. The benefit cost ratio is down to 0.25. One is break even, 0.25 is not. And we're paying only 90% complete, whereas it's already, without the cost escalations, $900 million behind. Next, please.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, now, the slides I'm giving you tonight, there's a lot of detail in them, and what I'll be doing is distributing them to everyone, including local members, councils, and all that sort of thing. As an academic, I'll get the information out. It's up to people to do it, use it as they want. So, check the website if you want to follow up and ask, or whoever. Alright, so I'll get that over the weekend. And, okay, this is what I'm talking about. If you look at the things there, crime savings, $62 million. Improved station manager 15. The one I like particularly is, because you've got to walk for it, because the stops and further apart, there's $37.6 million there. Right?
Don't forget about the skin cancer you'll get because there's no D3 painting.
Okay, there's also some time-saving road user benefits. Notice the road users are the biggest, the road users are the biggest gainers apparently from a public transport mechanism. And they get $275. Now, you get home early and say, oh, I felt great. I've just saved 15 minutes. Is that money in the bank? No, it's doozy. Right? It's an imaginary currency that goes right through this stuff. Okay, next slide, please.
That's bullshit.
Okay, in 2017, the bottom line, the model used in the light rail creates significant challenges when it comes to securing best value for money on extensions. The government was warned that if you extend past stage 2, it's not a level playing field in your negotiations. Next slide, please.
1 minute, Dr. McGovern.
Yep. Okay, we should basically be abandoning the light rails. I mean abandon, walk away. The further you go, the worse it gets. The other one I want to point out here is that we're trying to force twice the infrastructure through the pipeline as risk capacity. If you try and do that, all your costs go straight up, don't they? So there's a shepherd, there's all sorts of holes. Anyway, next one please. Next one. Just to finish off. Right? The Olympics have got on the left a fiscal responsibility norm, the new norm. A responsible approach must be taken to get it. By the way, the state of Queensland on its estimates is going to get a $4 billion gain from the Olympics. Right? Remember, the state doesn't collect revenue from ticket sales. We're going to spend that much money here on a tram. It's not going to do with the Olympics. Okay. The old time, we like to say for a fun finish, we need transport main roads and political agenda as well to move back to being responsible financially. And I'll just point out that there are a couple of inquiries going on at the moment in the Senate, some of the stuff that's going through there too. So I'm hopeful that we'll see some interesting comments from that end. Thank you.
I'm John Hicks.
Colin's up next though. I'm just standing in for John, who's actually away. Good on him. He deserves a break. He's been working really hard on this and other projects. You may be aware of John's words, the Trojan horse, which is what this Gold Coast Light Rail is all about. We're all seeing increased density. We're seeing more and more buildings going up.
Yes.
And what is driving that is the fact that they want to be able to do the urban development and the increased density along the coastal strip because they sell for multi-millions of dollars.
Yep.
Now, do you understand what urban renewal is?
Yep.
A lot of people don't really understand that the urban renewal is the utilities that are under the ground.
Yep.
Now, you've got fire, water, electricity, fibre optics, sewerage, all these things. But I'll break it down to something really simple for now. If they were to continue building at the rate they're building with the 50% uplift going fairly easily, and then the town plan overlay that supposedly comes along with the light rail, unless they do the urban renewal, and the light rail is the excuse, the ruse for that, they can't do it because they won't have enough water pressure to put out a fire in a building. They won't be able to sustain the building they're doing. So it's deceitful on many levels. It is not about transport. If they were serious about transport, they would be giving us heavy rail, which Colin's going to go into.
Yes.
So,
heavy rail, the Black Highway.
thank you.
Yes.
What else am I going to talk on John's
Yes.
behalf?
Well, they're building it. It's taking 5 years already.
Please keep your voice down.
Yeah, they're building it and it's going on. So we want to stop extension south of Perth. We don't want Surfers Paradise and Broadbeach in our land.
No.
Our southern Gold Coast
Yes.
is why tourists come here. Most tourists come here, drive here, and Jim's going to go into that. The business about airport to airport, well, it's more about city to city, because quite frankly, airport to airport, Brisbane Airport, less than 2% of people who fly out of Brisbane get there on the heavy train.
Yes.
It's more about the locals and who wants to travel just along the Gold Coast Highway. It's beyond me.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, I'm into it. All right, young Tiffany's on this round. Okay, John, you may well have heard through Palm Beach Elanora Community Group, who are involved with Community Alliance, are currently in a court case against the collective tower in Palm Beach, where they were looking at it as a 21-storey building at some stage. It's now going to go to an appeal, and they've managed to get it moved from being heard in Brisbane to being heard here in Southport. So we, as a community, need you to get up there and fight for every building until we can stop this goddamn thing. And there's a whole lot more I'll talk about, but let me have a quick see what I missed.
There's no parking.
There's no parking is huge. Yep, that's absolutely the case. So basically what I say is, we've got a special place. Next slide, there we go. A place worth defending. That's where we really need to be looking at. We need to demand that give us real transport. Don't try and con us, because we won't be taking that bait.
1 minute.
Okay, I've got 1 minute, and I'm trying to do John's stuff. Let me just do 1 second.
Here, the environmental impact, 1 minute.
I've got that here. Okay, environmental impacts. It's going to have to be quick, and I might be more than 1 minute, and I'm in trouble. Okay, we should not be held hostage to getting our fauna passes between Burleigh Hill and Currumbin Hill. At the moment, they're saying we will get those if we take light rail. Unacceptable. We have koalas. We have the Richmond birdwing butterfly. It's co-evolved vine. There are many other flora species that are endangered in those areas, and it's a major concern. We have the indigenous cultural heritage, their sacred god, the Dreamtime god Jabreen, their creative god. We have matriarchal area where women trekked for months to be able to give birth to their babies and bathe in the healing waters of Tallabudgera Creek. The uncertainty of the bridges is an issue. It's going to change the hydraulics, which is going to affect the 5,000-year-old fish traps. The loss of trees, we all know that's already happening, but we need to be protecting as many as we can, hence the Yellow Ribbon Day. The loss of vegetation. And then I think we've got a lot of rethinking to do. Key facts, light rail is a Trojan horse. It's not about transport. Gold Coast Light Rail 3 and 4, the concept of shared roadways, several level crossings, reduced to single lane or removal of your parking. They change their mind all the time. It's garbage, and we need to stand up and say we won't be treated this way.
Good evening, everybody. A lot of familiar faces from a meeting 2 weeks ago, and I realise I'm probably speaking to a mostly passing crowd against the light rail, and I certainly don't want to present information that's going to make you any angrier. I'm angry enough. I'm a nobody in this race. I don't seek public office. I don't live on the route. I'm not affected like the thousands of people who live on the route are affected. I'm someone from an engineering background, a long career, dedicated to public transport, and everything I've seen in light rail is absolutely rubbish until I met Kath Down, who joined up partners, and since then she's introduced me to several meetings with TMR and various politicians to give me exposure and access, and I thank Kath for her perseverance in making those meetings with various elected officials. And through that I've learned quite a lot about this topic in addition to my own research, the benefit that you have in semi-retirement to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to be very brief here as best as I can and just put forward some very logical reasons. Again, I am singing to a very big choir here on this topic. The first one is how can the current government ignore the views of the 3 democratically elected officials in the affected electorates for light rail? The meeting 2 weeks ago, Michael Hart, Bethany McDowell, Karen Andrews, was very clear, very good turnout, talking about the problems related to light rail. You have 3 representative members in a democracy raising very significant concerns, and the government just steamrolls. You know something stinks. Tell me when that has ever happened previously in a democratic Australian society. That should be the biggest flag concerning everybody. The second is really the practicality, in that there is no evidence that the borrowing, and I stress this, is borrowed money with interest, $4.7 billion, stages 3 and 4 combined to Currumbin, that simply is 20 kilometres replacing a bus with a tram is a viable, let alone argued as a priority project. Tell someone in a hospital ramping queue that there's no bed for them, that wouldn't they rather be sitting on a tram as a greater priority? Really, that to me is a sickening statement, and I'd like to see the Minister really put to the toast on that claim. So, next slide is the physical economic realities that TMR, and I appreciate the media was here before, certainly not the Gold Coast Bulletin. Anyone from Gold Coast Bulletin want to show their hand? No, Gold Coast Bulletin will not publish anything until the TMR approve it and put that on the record. They told us that straight. So, there was a comment before, heavy rail. I believe the Southern Gold Coast deserves heavy rail. I appreciate it's a controversial topic. It's a challenging piece of infrastructure. But whatever happened to the plan to have heavy rail? I date back to the 2003 report, Parsons Breckenhoff report, which is still existent on the TMR website, that promotes the connection of heavy rail to the border by 2015. In fact, I've got a property in Tallabudgera assuming that my children will get to University of Brisbane on a heavy rail. And they've since graduated and now long gone. So what happened? In 24 years, as the slide says, it extended only 3.6 kilometres to Varsity. 24 years and only 3.6. This is if you go on the TMR website, they still host on this page the 2003 study. It shows you where the stations are, up into Currumbin Creek. And it lays out quite in detailed layers, engineering details for the project, along with timelines. Again, I do know it is controversial, but that's what the debate should be about. Okay, back to some more realities. Southern Gold Coast Tweed truly deserve a efficient heavy rail network in Gold Coast to the Brisbane corridor. I cite the case of Redcliffe achieving heavy rail connection recently. What would the southern Manly and Cleveland be if the train stopped at Wynnum? What would Ferny Grove and Sanford Valley be if the train stopped at Dover in Brisbane? Why are we seen as something different? It's challenging, but it can be done. And the route, from a meeting I had with Kat, with TMR, the route still does exist, the designated corridor down the M1. It is a challenging corridor, and a huge efficiency was lost by not building it with the M1 upgrade, but it still does exist, and it should be debated. So light rail, it's just slow. By my definition, it is slow. The light rail journey from Gold Coast Airport to Helensvale, when completed, will take 110 minutes. It'll take 72 minutes to get you to Main Beach, and there's no toilets on those trains. Heavy rail, if it was constructed as per the Parsons-Bricknell, it would connect Gold Coast Airport with Robina in 17 minutes. Mr. Vorster, where the hell are you defending light rail when your constituents could be getting to the airport in 17 minutes? I want his voters. And you could be in Helensvale in 29 minutes connecting to the busy Gold Coast Brisbane corridor. As Kath said, is the busiest growth electorate in southeast Queensland. I suppose in Queensland in general. So why is it so slow? These are the numbers, and this is very simple research that anyone can do. Much of this comes from a TransLink timetable, doing some very simple calculations. Dr. McGovern is the economist here. I do my mathematics on the back of a napkin like Kevin Rudd at the NBN, very similar sort of techniques, but it can be done very easily. So Helensvale to Southport is mostly greenfield site, not a lot of stations. It operates at an average speed of 27 kilometres an hour. But when it starts to combine with road services, we see stage 3 and stage 4, that overall distance speed goes down to 21.5. And that's where you get those slow numbers. So why is time important? At the moment, when you look at the TransLink timetable, it says actually the bus travel time from Broadbeach to the airport is quicker than the tram will be. So your tram's not going to be a faster trip.
Less stations. Go back.
Dingo, yes. So I had a slide up particularly on that. There's a little line here missing, but what most people don't realise who don't use the tram is that the tram has an occupancy of 300 people. Governments say a full tram is 300 people. What you don't know, to be 100% full, that's 220 people standing. There's only 80 seats on a tram. Do you know how many seats there are? Do you know how many seats there are on a double-deck bus? 85. It's all in it. We do the research. So does Mark Bailey, do our Gold Coast City councillors in support of light rail, like Mr. McDonald has been very clear on the negatives, do they want our senior citizens to stand on the train? Because to get over 30% occupancy, that's what it is. Okay, it's not rapid, but it is expensive. I'll move very quickly. To be very clear, I do not believe, as my colleagues in the association, that public transport should be profit-driven. It should not be. But if I was to ask you the cost of construction, how much money is that, and how long would it take to recoup that money in ticket sales riding the tram? Again, you get out the Kevin Rudd napkin to do your mathematics. Next slide. Here we go. So what it works out, 4.7 billion capital borrowings, that's every seat, because I think if you're standing, you should be paying half the price. So every seat, on every tram running 19 hours a day, full adult, and it works out 137 years of that operation, full occupancy, to to recoup the 4.7. Now this is a silly equation. Public transport should not be profitable. But how the hell can you justify this as priority infrastructure with these numbers?
It's not about transport.
All right, so I keep saying more reality is that if the light rail does connect to the airport, heavy rail will never be completed in our lifetime. That's a debate that we should honestly have because it's being used as a pincer movement by the Transport Minister. It's extremely, in my view, dishonest of him to use that as a pincer movement between the various groups. It does rob Southern Gold Coast of a truly viable connection, as well as the Tweed region. And through Gathdown, we've had meetings with the Tweed Mayor and the state member for Northern Tweed. And they're very interested to look at better connections with Brisbane corridors.
1 minute.
Right, so I'm going to jump in. So I do talk about tram, the benefits of tram over bus. Yes, most people think a tram is a more comfortable ride, but is it really worth it? Have we become a society of bus snobs? Are we all too good to use the tram? Jump to lost opportunities. This was always my point. Margaret, come on the slide. I got involved with CAP because I looked at the spending of such huge amounts of money mean that we lose real opportunities for real public transport solutions. And if I had the money box and I was a state member and I had control of the government spending on public transport, what you see above me is exactly what I would do. And number one on that list would be firstly test the market with a free tourist bus between the airport and Southport. Step number one. I won't go any further in details because I'm on time. Very quickly, I spent 16 years living in Singapore running a business with a family of 4 without a car. 16 years totally reliant on public transport. I became a complete bus-train combination convert, and there's no 40-kilometre long light rail system in Singapore. They're much smarter than that. What you see there is how, step one, that little picture there, that's a live LED timetable that when you go to the bus stop, it tells you how far away your bus is. It even tells you how many spare seats are left on the bus. I won't go into this one, but quickly clicking through. Yes, people who are talking about the separation distances of the tram stops, these are the numbers. So the expectation, as Kath said, in the business model is there's calculated health benefits of you walking a lot further than you currently do for the bus. I think that all itself is extremely dishonest and should be on the record. The other intention is the next slide, is the intention to move the traffic that results from congestion on the Gold Coast Highway onto the M1. But to do it through Stewart Road, and you all know the congestion already on Stewart Road. On the slide, Margaret. You're all very familiar with this intersection. So that's anyone from Coolangatta, Kura, Kalinga, Tugun heading to the M1 North. With all the changes being made, there is zero intention to create a flyover to improve that traffic light condition. They intend to double the number of flow of cars, no change. And they're doing that even while they upgrade the M1. Perfect opportunity being wasted. But that is the government who demonise the motor vehicle. And secondly, we're adding level crossings. Another dishonest case when, in the case of Melbourne, there's an actual activity, a project in Melbourne to remove the level crossings. And so far removed 70 of the 110 level crossings because they recognise the danger and the risk. The congestion we get, just quickly through Margaret, anyone who travels through Olsen Avenue and gets caught by the trams going each direction, because the tram has priority to stop the traffic. You got that case. Hooker Boulevard is also well known. And to show how stupid we are in the Department of Transport and how we have our ideology wrong, at a time when we should be building flyovers, we're actually ripping out flyovers. The Musgrave Road flyover is being demolished, and they cheat on the flyover. If you look at it online, they're very manipulative with their little flyover, and they just say, change to intersection. So you will have two intersections 50 metres apart, both with tram priority at the bottom end of the hero. I don't live down there. I sympathise with those who do. Let me just quickly beat David with the clock and get to the last slide. And this is my Churchillian moment, my Churchillian phrase. And I can't imagine anywhere in the history of Australia we've spent so much to transport so few and congest so many. Thank you for your time. I hope I didn't make you ready. And if there's anyone that actually supports light rail, I keep an open mind, and part of the time I would like to get on board. But to date, no one has been able to convince me properly. Thank you for your time. Cheers.
Good evening, everybody. Jim Wilson's my name. I want to come at this from a slightly different point of view, perspective. It's not only the First Nations people of the southern Gold Coast, the Yulubare people of the valleys of Benogin, Telebudger and Currumbin, who are the custodians of the beauty and the legacy of this land. It's us, our community. We have a responsibility to make sure that what we leave behind for our children is as good, if not better, than what we inherited when we were born or moved here. And it's my firm belief that concrete and steel, elevated light rail infrastructure should not be part of that vision of ours. If you consider the Telebudger and Coolangatta regional features, it's the narrowest east-west region on the Gold Coast. It's the closest the M1 comes to the coastline on all of the Gold Coast, and I'd submit probably including New South Wales and the rest of Queensland. The distance from the coast is probably about 1.5 kilometres, which is the M1 I'm referring to. Nowhere else on the Gold Coast is the light rail so close to the M1 as is proposed for the southern Gold Coast. The M1 is Australia's national highway corridor, and the M1 splits the population down here on an east-west basis. So why do the authorities think it's a good idea to squeeze into this narrow region another massive corridor for light rail, which like the M1 will be purely concrete and steel?
Exactly.
Why can't the M1 corridor become a dual corridor for vehicles on either light or heavy rail? Our southern Gold Coast is the most beautiful region on the Gold Coast, and proponents of light rail want to destroy its beauty. I go to Southport and seriously I get nauseous when I see what light rail has done to that beautiful area. I just cannot believe that any politician, any community would bastardise an area the way light rail has done it. Now, people obviously don't want that here. My wife's an English teacher, and I said to her the other day, what is the noun for people who don't like beauty? And she told me it was a caliphophobe. Remember that, C-A-L-O-P-H-O-B-E. In my view, the proponents of light rail are nothing more than basic caliphobes. On the question of beauty, I know we're interested in the planning and I'm a solicitor, so I tend to follow these things, although sometimes a little bit incessantly. A planning and environment court judge, Judge Williamson, made in relation to a high-rise development, he said, he didn't approve the development because it irreparably damaged the local identity and sense of place currently enjoyed by the plaintiffs, which are the community, who live next door, and that the sense of place should properly be protected by council from overdevelopment. He said that in his proposal, in his judgment, that the proposed building would be perceived as overbearing and visually dominate views and adversely impact on the streetscape of the locality. With respect, his honour is not a caliphate. So why can't these principles be applied to infrastructure developments like light rail in our region, particularly when there's an alternative M1 corridor that could be used as a dual corridor in some way or other? And I don't really care whether it's heavy rail or light rail. I just don't want light rail here personally. The article that I read went on to say, our councillors are not employed by property developers, or I would say infrastructure developers, to bastardise the living standards of residents of the city in the name of increased population density. So let's talk about the impacts of light rail. Once it's finished with destroying the beauty, amenity and livability of the place, it will, one, because of parking issues, it will create the congestion on the Gold Coast Highway, and the impetus it will give to continued high-density development where there's never enough car parking for residents and visitors who will park on the street. It will divide the southern Gold Coast on a north-west-south-east line into those who can't park near the beach, but who can walk to the beach, and those like me from the valley who won't be able to park within that area at all, so you can basically forget the beach and the estuaries. There's been an amenity to which I and others. By the way, 2/3 of the population of the Southern Gold Coast lives more than 750 metres from the beach.
2 minutes.
Therefore, I say, in addition to my criticism of the Caliphos wanting to destroy the beauty of the place, I therefore say that approximately 2/3 of the population are going to be denied reasonable and regular access to the beaches and the estuaries, which is why all of us live here. And don't tell me that high-rise development with light rail is going to disencourage people to have motor cars. We live in a sun belt. We're 27.5 degrees south of the equator, Orlando, Florida, and everywhere else over in America is 27.5 degrees. Try telling them that people who live in sun belts don't want to have cars. Absolutely ridiculous. And ultimately, the light rail for our region will come to be known as a disastrous social re-engineering project that will discriminate against 2/3 of the population in terms of them being able to enjoy the full amenity of our region. I would like to congratulate the Caliphos on that outcome, because that is going to be the outcome. And anybody that says that the small temporary bubble in increased traveller numbers that the Olympics will generate is some sort of innocuous, mysterious justification for light rail doesn't understand the previous 2 points I've been making. Finally, I'll conclude, what we aren't being told is the true post-construction economic benefit. I've not seen anywhere from the light rail up in the northern section of our beautiful city. I don't really know what to think about whether it works or it doesn't work. And frankly, I'm not interested because it's not appropriate here. But the thing that deeply concerns me is that what's not factored into it is the cost and the suffering that small businesses and the local community, without compensation, are certainly going to suffer. And these are not factored into the nebulous numbers that are put out for us. So I say to the Caliphos, what studies have you done incorporating all of the social, economic, environmental benefits or costs to our community? The answer is, we haven't been told. You see, democracy doesn't just start with the ballot box. The ballot box determines the way forward, but what determines the implementation is consultation on an honest, true and transparent basis with communities, and that has not happened. The Caliphos don't want to see that happening, because they want it their way in terms of concrete and steel, because concrete and steel creates jobs. Yes, we'll say they're manufacturing electric buses and God knows what else which we can do. Simply put, ladies and gentlemen, our region is not amenable for or suitable for light rail.
All right, I'm back with me. 5 minutes. Oh, Kylie, you're next. Where are you, Kylie?
Kylie, you have 8 minutes. Now you look like a very obedient client.
I am.
So I'm sure when I say 2 minutes, you will be responsible.
All good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've been invited here tonight. I'm from Burleigh. I run a little business on the Gold Coast Highway, and a lot of the community come and chat with me about what's happening in relation to the construction and everything that's occurring outside. So I'm here tonight to just talk to you a little bit about what is actually happening and what the impacts are to some of our community. So we have, I guess, firstly, the upgrade to our services, which of course we know has to happen. However, I think from a community point of view, we would put up with the noise and everything that's occurring and the disruption to our lives if we believed in what was occurring was actually going to help or assist or be for the community. However, the light rail we don't believe is going to assist or fix our transport problem. I can tell you that some of the impacts just to give you a few of what's been occurring, are things like not only noise during the day and jackhammering, where if you're like a lot of the population at the moment who work from home, will not be able to focus on what you're doing, but also the community is putting up with night works and no reprieve sometimes of that night works. It may continue for 2 weeks straight and they're not getting sleep. I know it was on the news apparently that somebody was sent earplugs to stop them from, hearing it and be able to sleep at night. And I don't know if that was meant to be a joke or not, from them, but a lot of the community are actually being impacted from their mental health. They are having night works that will go from, it might start at anywhere about 9:30 and go right through some nights till 2 a.m. and it even has been till 4 a.m. I had some people come and stay with me for a few nights and were like, how can you guys put up with this? Our houses are literally shaking as they're doing the works. Some of the community get up and are tradespeople, like the people who are working on this, and they get up at 4 a.m. to go to their jobs, and at 4 a.m. they have had about 2 hours sleep. They're worried for what they're doing in their jobs because it's not safe for them to be working and sleep deprived at the same time. Matt, who owns Street Corner, and Sam, who lives behind me, couldn't be here tonight because it's just bad timing, unfortunately. Sorry, Kath, for them, because they're putting kids to bed and everything. But he has lost close to $100,000 in his business of just having these works being attended to right outside his cafe. So here's Street Corner Espresso. If anybody's going past Burleigh Way, or any of the businesses along this pathway that are being impacted, I please ask you to support them so that they can continue in their businesses. A number of locals, even the other night, contacted me that live in Burleigh Street, which is it depends on where you are in Burleigh Street, but anywhere from 500 metres to 700 metres away. And they're going, what is that noise? I can't sleep. So they're hearing it back there. Imagine if you're on the front line and copying this as well. Sue here has been impacted greatly. She lives around the corner just off 4th Avenue of Burleigh. And tell us, Sue, what have you been experiencing while you've been through this?
Okay, so I had 4 trees that were cut down on the corner of my place that I happened to look after for the whole pandemic. So they cut those down a couple of weeks ago, which was really hard to watch. And they're now putting car parking in, 7 lots of car parks in our street. But I guess the reason I reached out to you is because I know how much the sound affects me at night. And personally, if I get up, I'm up early in the morning anyway, but I like to be on the yoga mat at 6 a.m, so I'm up at 4:30. And having weeks of no sleep, it actually really is, I don't know about anybody else, but I turn very cranky when I don't get my sleep. And as I say to people, there's most people who are going to work and they're going to a job the next day, and I can only feel for how those kids must be in the classroom and how people are. So yeah, and at the moment, like even today, they've got the jackhammers out, they were concreting, it's just, it's constant, yeah, and I feel for you, Kylie, I feel for anybody who's right on the highway. But yeah, I don't want it to go past Burleigh Hill, Jabreen down, and I don't want anyone to have to go through what we're going through. I manage a number of properties around Burleigh,
and some of my clients obviously have property on the Gold Coast Highway. And one of our properties currently has got a crack that has appeared right across the bathroom tiles. This is not a property that was done 20 years ago. This was a property that was fully renovated only 4 years ago. So the impacts to the buildings as well is what the locals are having to put up with. Now, again, I want to stress that with the noise, with what's occurring, we chose to live on the Gold Coast Highway. We absolutely understand that there are going to be impacts and there is going to be services that need upgrading. We would be more likely to put up with these if we believed in what was occurring was actually for us and not, as Kath puts it, a Trojan horse to have further development down and height restrictions lifted and developments built right along the Gold Coast Highway, which is going to ruin our community, I believe. From a real estate point of view, I want to talk about the high-rises that are being built. People and buyers that are purchasing these properties that are sometimes well in excess of $1.5 million, they are not going to catch the light rail. So what we're looking at, and I'm all for, and so is a lot in the community, all for putting politics aside, putting everything aside, let's all join forces and work together to have the discussion and the open discussion, like lots of people have said today, of what is the best solution for us long term in our environments and in our community, rather than a quick fix that is really not even a fix, taking up precious roadway where we are a community. I've heard somebody else say that tonight. We're a community that does, we're Gold Coast, we like to drive. People like to drive because you don't just live up and down the Gold Coast Highway. They turn off it. If you don't just live on the Gold Coast Highway, you are not using the light rail. So what I would suggest is let's come forward and let's re-look and investigate on the long-term plan for the Gold Coast. And what is it that's going to keep our community beautiful and what it is that we love today. You know, so thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to talk a little bit about community. I have 5 minutes. Well, let's see if I can stick to that. Okay. You may or may not be aware that there has been an announcement. It's been made in the media, and we have the Southern Gold Coast community groups coming together, and those community groups are Community Alliance that now consists of 15 community groups, Gecko, Friends of Currumbin, Tugun Progress Association, Palm Beach Eleanora Community Group, and Save Our Southern Gold Coast have come together in a position of unity. That position of unity, in our view, makes sense, and that reads, finish heavy rail to the Gold Coast Airport as the priority. Go back to the drawing board, conduct a comprehensive, transparent, publicly accessible evaluation of all modes, including light rail, and renewable energy vehicles such as zero-emission buses and Brisbane Metro-style trams. We believe that if there is an open, public investigation, light rail won't stand a chance. It just will not happen. Now, we're going to move along because, am I up to RTIs? I am. Okay. Where we are going with legal avenues at the moment. We have lawyers that are acting on our behalf, telco tech lawyers, who are doing some pro bono work. And we've jumped through lots of hoops with them to qualify, say, our Southern Gold Coast as under financial hardship and qualify for 1 year of free information under the RTI Act. Then they asked me for a letterhead giving Telco Tech permission to act on our behalf, and we were shut down immediately. It wasn't a consideration, it was they were waiting for that letterhead and that letter, and they were saying no. We are not stopping at that. We are looking at raising money and we are taking further action. We are not stopping there. We are chasing them for business cases of stages 1, 2 and 3. Some of them are over 10 years old. We had the Coldrake inquiry recently. He says they should all be available after 30 days. We're after post-completion studies. Over 10 years old, nothing. We asked for the electricity costs because there's been a tip that's $5 million a month to run, and that was 18 months ago. That's a commercial in confidence. So why are all these things commercial in confidence or cabinet in confidence? Because they've got a hell of a lot to hide. And you know, whether it be our local members, there's been all sorts of, it's been really, really tough going. I can just tell you, there's been objection and it's just been a tough road. And we will not go away, we will continue. And I would let you know that we actually do have an investigation that's happening at the moment. The Commonwealth Ombudsman has accepted and is investigating at the moment the actions, and we're also talking to other members, other bodies, but the Commonwealth Ombudsman has acknowledged and they are investigating. So, you know, we're not just chasing our tails, we are getting places. And I know it's happening because I'm hearing questions at certain offices now. Oh, he's busy, he's with the Ombudsman. So it is happening. Don't give up. Don't let it happen. You know, we just have to keep on going with this thing. Okay, in summary, light rail's extraordinary poor value for money. Remember stages 1 and 2? For every $2 fare spent, we subsidise $8 just to meet the interest payment to the private party. Who's the private party? John Holland. Who owns John Holland? China Communications Company. Who owns that? Chinese Communist Party. It's not good enough. The PPP arrangements are not good enough, and we are paying those kind of subsidies on the cheapest part of the build. Imagine by the time it gets to stage 4. So we work out, we don't work with some of TRMR's figures, we say Gold Coast Light Rail stage 3, 6.7 kilometres is $1.5 billion. Break that into how many kilometres you get versus how many zero emission buses. You can get 500 zero emission buses under $500 million to service the whole of Gold Coast City Council, including Mark Campbell's and Michael Crampton's areas with the highest population, with high frequency, sustainable, flexible, dispatchable transport. What can you buy that in light rail stage 3? 2.23 kilometres of light rail stage 3. Does that make you angry? Yes. Right, that's your taxpayers' dollars, and we have a housing crisis, we have a health crisis, we have a cost of living crisis. Why on earth can we not put our hand up and say, hey, go back and look at this, it's wrong? Okay, exhibits public transport across the city, it inhibits. It will be blocking other forms of transport. If light rail goes first, you will not see heavy rail. Do not let heavy rail out of your sights because that's the only true fast intercity connections. The Trojan horse, we've talked about that. Major traffic, parking is a big issue. You know, I've looked at one building in particular. It's the Village of Palm Beach. There are 88 car parks for 72 apartments. There were 2 electric vehicle charging, I've got the plans in my hands. There were 2 electric vehicle charging bays that are now no longer allowed to be used. So much for going green. This council is letting us down. Our state government is letting us down. And what do we want? We want a complete heavy rail. We want to reinvent the bus system of Gold Coast City transport. So I've got one more little bit that I need to, if I can hold it, okay. Meeting resolution, so I need a show of hands, guys. The forum calls for Transport Minister Mark Bailey, Mayor Tom Tate, and Federal Minister of Infrastructure Catherine King to fully evaluate all concerns and alternative solutions raised in this forum. Pause or, actually show of hands, let's do each and every one of them in case someone does disagree. Okay, we've got unanimous. The next one, pause all planning, business case and land acquisitions for light rail, for Gold Coast Light Rail until these evaluations are complete. Yeah, everybody. Okay, great, fantastic. Refuse federal funding. Refuse federal funding on Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 4 until Infrastructure Australia delivers a transparent, publicly available evaluation of concerns regarding poor value for money and better alternative solutions for a whole of city public transport. That's for Minister King only. Show of hands. The e-petition, guys, make sure you get them in and share them. Remove Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 4 from Infrastructure Australia's priority list as an early stage proposal until the above evaluations have been completed. That's Minister King. Okay, we all agree. Let's go out there and let everybody know. And I'm going to pass to Margaret because Margaret's going to talk a little bit about the petitions and to make sure that we all get every opportunity to call this thing for what it is. It's a ruse. Light rail is a ruse for urban development, for urban renewal, which is increasing high rises and is robbing you of transport and taking your taxpayers' dollars.
Mine's just going to be very short and sweet. I'm just doing the housekeeping side of things. As you were coming in this evening, there was a list at the front there asking if you'd like to put your name and your email address so that we could add you to our bulk emails. We want to keep as many people up to date with the activities, results, anything else that's happening that we can do to inform the public of the facts. The other thing, of course, is, as Kat pointed out, Save Our Southern Gold Coast is not financial. That's why we qualified for a hardship 12 months to get the RTIs, which I have trouble with. It's used to be freedom of information, same thing. So it's very important. We're trying to encourage those that can to become members. It's not an excessive amount, and if you can't afford the whole amount, then any donation is better than none. Because even just for tonight, all of the printing, photocopying, the work that has gone just for the group that's here this evening has come out of our own pockets, and Kat has spent quite large sums of money over a lengthy period of time. Not that she regrets that, because she's wholeheartedly supports the cause, but it just can't continue falling onto one person's shoulders. And you know what it's like, nothing gets done, nothing's for free, and unless we all stand together and chip in a little bit, we won't succeed. We have to really put, I suppose, our wallets where our mouths are. We just have to try and assist along that way. On the chairs tonight, you'll find that there was a QR code. This one's particularly important. It's our federal government petition, and our petition number is EN 5103. Just try and remember that if you can, because there's been a number of petitions added since we lodged that petition. It's important that you really do go onto the federal government petition site. We only have a closing date of the 5th of June. The very first weekend it went up, unfortunately they took the site down for maintenance. We did ask for an extension, but that's not policy. So we need to try and up the numbers as much as we can. And I know it feels like you've signed this, you've signed that, but everything's going to different areas. We also have here tonight a petition which is going to council, and that's a handwritten petition. We've been holding some information booths at a number of areas. I've been down with the lovely Diana over here, down at Currumbin, near the siblings, which is across the road from the monstrosity that used to be called the Currumbin Pub. So it's important. We've been, getting as many signatures as possible. We've got quite a number, but the more the merrier, of course. The other thing I'd like to suggest is that if anybody can spare a little bit of time, rather than it just always falling to the same people, if you have a couple of hours spare on the weekend and you just would like to get involved a little bit more, please make contact. You can contact us through just sending a message on Facebook Messenger or email, whatever your preference is. Volunteering, it's worthwhile, and nothing gets done if we all just sit back complacently thinking, oh well, you can't change government's mind. Where would we be? We'd still be working about 80 hours a week if we didn't try and rally together to limit that. Sorry.
Usually the first Saturday of the month we have a protest done due.
Yes, that's right.
On tomorrow?
Yes, that will be on tomorrow. That's a meeting at Pirate Park. That's where everybody gets together. We did stop that 1 month because we started doing the information booths because we wanted to get as many petitions as possible, signatures on the petition to go to council. But yes, tomorrow people are rallying. And I know it does get a little bit tiring, but setting aside, even half an hour every day, if you could pop down and just a show of numbers, it's great to see people giving support, and it's interesting to see that we are actually encouraging some of our state and council members to actually attend this evening. We did invite a huge number. We invited all 14 councillors. We invited the state members. Is that all right? Yeah. We did invite Laura Gerber from our area, Michael Hart, which has made his appearance here. And we also invited the likes of Catherine King, Murray Watt, who was on TV recently supporting the light rail for I don't know what reason, and a few other invitations as well. So we really did try to encourage, and it's very disappointing to see that we have one councillor. And I would have thought it would have been nice to have Gail O'Neill here, because the tail end of Currumbin is going to cop so much disaster. But we can't even encourage our councillors to come and listen and see. And I'm sure some of the facts that we've been provided to you tonight by some very smart people, they probably haven't even, they're really not across it. It's all sort of rah-rah and industries sort of leading the way, and yes, it sounds great because, we have this little property here and we only get a couple of $1,000 a year for rates, but if we knock it down and whack up, 14 stories, suddenly our income increases substantially. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the money. Okay, so you can follow the money trail, and I'm sure there's lots of things that even we haven't found out about. But yeah, so really we've got account details if anybody's interested. There's little posters around advising the account details if you'd like to contribute. And that's the end of me. I'm going to put it over to Q&A, which is David.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you too for the conduct of the meeting. I know that there are people here who totally are against the heavy rail, totally in support of the light rail. I commend you all because you've listened. Every speaker broke the rules and they went beyond what they should have. I didn't have a gavel, I wasn't able to call, but it was worth hearing. And so it's important that majority here, you get the hands going up, the majority of you are dead against this light rail. I would encourage the other side to listen. And I would encourage you to listen to supporters of the light rail, because it really is important. Jim Wilson, I was a constitutional judge. I was senior counsel, Queen's Counsel, and one of the 5 areas I specialised in as a barrister is constitutional law. We live in a democracy, a liberal parliamentary democracy, but we're lazy. Every 3 years we vote, we let people, because we all live well. But when you get an instance like this that really fires you up, it's important that you go to your elected politicians and get them to listen. Oh, louder, all right. So it's important that you get your politicians to listen. If 10 people turn up to a politician's or a councillor's office, they're invited in for tea and biscuits, and the politician and staff sit down and take notes. They say to you, we'll be in touch. Well, you never hear from them again. But if 1,000 people turn up outside that politician's office and are respectful, it's amazingly how quickly the politician listens. But there's an equal obligation on you. Listen to the politician. You've elected him, and even if you didn't, he or she has been elected to represent you. So listen. So I won't go on any further. I commend you for the way you have held this meeting. Jim was right. Think about your governance. We've got a big issue coming up in October, and you'll have to think about it. So I'm going to hand it over now for questions. I don't know.
We're going to just listen to you, and then we'll...
I think, Madam, you wanted to ask a question.
I just wanted to know if you repeat that petition number.
Oh, sorry, the petition number is EN 5103. So that the QR code will take you to the page. There's a search. You put the number in the search, it'll go straight to the petition. You can read it. You sign it, like out of electronic yes. You receive an email, which you then have to verify. And once you've verified the email, that counts as a vote.
The other thing I'm curious about, could we have a show of hands here? Who is in favour of the light rail in this room right now? There you are.
Not one.
One.
No, not one.
Not one.
Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
I came here not so much with a question. I missed the last one and I do apologise, but my colleague was here at the last one and he mentioned that we were able to talk. I was wondering if I may be able to use a minute and a half to just give you a slightly different angle on a legal aspect that I've come across. Would that be okay? Yeah. So I don't know if anybody's seen this document. I'm sure Michael Hart might be aware of it. It's our koala conservation plan. It's built into our city plan. And it has a lot to say about this. So I've drafted a letter to the Minister. I've spoken explicitly about this, but I've also obviously gone into detail about a number of the other things you've raised, particularly regarding amenity. But I just wanted to have a quick look at what we're doing here against this plan. So Burley Ridge Park, everybody knows where that is? So it extends from the coast and it goes in there a couple of kilometres. That is a koala priority area, a Queensland koala priority area, a high priority area, as per the current COGC plan. It states, and I quote, "The City of the Gold Coast supports some of the most important koala habitat and populations in southeast Queensland in Burley Ridge Park, east and west of the Gold Coast Bay, being identified as high-value bushland for habitat value. The aim of this plan, on page 14, everyone can download this, it's just on the website,
to ensure long-term sustainability of koala populations, including safe passage and habitat retention, not destruction.
Yeah.
The objectives, and this is not an exhaustive list, is identifying and protecting habitat to limit clearing and increase connectivity through informed development assessment. Informed development assessment. That's what our council says they're going to do. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. Well, they're not standing up for it anyway. So the performance indicators within this plan, and also these are not exhaustive, are to increase the number of hectares of koala habitat restored. And this is specifically talking about Burleigh Ridge Park. To stabilise and increase koala populations within the priority local areas. And again, there's a map, page 13, that identifies a yellow section of Burleigh Ridge Park as a very high priority area of very healthy koalas, disease-free. We need to protect them. And so, that's enough to prove my point, but let's keep going. So page 18, we've got habitat loss is the top threat to koala populations, is the quote in the plan. And then it identifies on page 16, major threats, vegetation clearing, habitat degradation, habitat fragmentation, all of which would occur with stage 4 implementation in direct conflict with the most crucial aspects of this plan and the documented action commitments that have been made by our City of the Gold Coast that we pay our rates to. I'm not a ratepayer, I don't have no vested interest, but whoever does. So we know now that Tate is completely disregarding the plan, isn't he? And therefore he's completely disregarding his own city plan. So disregarding that koalas are vulnerable both state and federally, as per State Government Nature Conservation Act 1992 and as per Commonwealth Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999, disregarding environmental law. This isn't new information. This has been out for years. And the area is known as Koala Park, for goodness sake. How this route through Burleigh Ridge, Tullabudgera, ever made it onto a boardroom table is a shame to our local serving members for their complicity. It's a shame to TMR and it's a shame on you, Mark Bailey, for pushing it forward.
He's a prick.
You know all of this. Politics is hard, yep, politics is hard. Ends get tied, yep, they get tied. I work in the law too, I'm an EHO. I have no vested interest in this though, other than I want to see this stopped.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
So I challenged Mark Bailey in my letter, which will iterate this amongst other things, and basically call him to account for many of his misnomers, to say it nicely. So I'll challenge him to tell me why koalas are not more important than anything else in this picture, given all the legalities I've just quoted you here. So, and I've said to him, please don't tell me about your wildlife bridge in an attempt to placate people. We don't want to hear it. We don't want your artificial sweetness. It's legislated that koalas are protected. Yep. So that's enough. It's over. It's done. Stage 4 is not happening through Chug and Tally.
Good. Yeah.
Not in this lifetime, not ever. It's ludicrous, it's damaging, beyond ability for future riparian action. It won't be able to be undone. Development contrary to established environmental protection laws is just pure, willful destruction. Willful destruction of an iconic and vulnerable species. Not on my watch, not on my city's watch, and I'm sure it's not on your watch either. So thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Hi, I'm Doug. I live in Currumbin. We hear that there are other motives to the tram, obviously with the overdevelopment and the rules of they can build buildings near the tram. Is there any actual proof, or have any of the people who are pro the tram spoken up about this and actually made it public?
Does anyone here have an answer for that? I know we have a state politician here. Do you have an answer for that?
No, I don't have an answer. Just
Excuse me, I wasn't talking to you at this stage. I was speaking
There is, I've done RTIs, so Michael Hart, folks, I'm Saturn for Burley, and I'm happy to give you any facts that I'm aware of, and any reality that I'm aware of. I'm not going to go in any conspiracy theories.
How about just get to what the answer was?
I've done several RTIs, and they do indicate that light rail has been encouraged for infill on the Gold Coast. So I can show you that, and I'm very happy to do that. Daphne, myself, some of the other members are going to have another night. We can arrange for please don't have a go at your local members unless you know the facts, because we've been saying exactly the same thing now for 14, 15 years. So that's where we're up to. This is a government decision, okay? It is not your local members of parliament that can make these decisions. That's been taken out of our hands years ago. This is bureaucracy and government. And I had a long conversation with Kylie earlier today, and I gave Kylie an undertaking that I talked about like last State Street. It's locked and loaded, folks. It can't be stopped. It won't be stopped. That's the reality of it. We still have the opportunity to stop light rail stage 4, and it's community activity that will stop it. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here. We totally encourage the activity of the community to put forward your views. That's why we held a meeting the other week, and we kept it to us listening to you. That's what that meeting was all about. Us listening to you. We heard what you said. We put those resolutions to the government, and I spoke in Parliament last week about it. We've given all those letters over to the government. They have that now. We've said to Mark Bailey, you pick a time that suits you.
Was with a company called Bombardier to supply below ground and above ground rail. Bombardier was liquidated 5 years ago. Now, to my knowledge, and to most of the industry's knowledge, when Bombardier was liquidated, no other company showed interest in pursuing light rail. Now, the only company that proposes that it has an interest in light rail was in a company called Salk, which is a Spanish organisation that says that it has delivered light rail. But it cannot support that in any other way. It employs no engineers that have got light rail experience, and it has never delivered a light rail step. So the question is, what is actually going to be delivered? If this mythical creature is actually going to Burley, what is it going to be? Because it's not going to be a Bombardier set, and it's not going to be Bombardier technology, because that doesn't exist anymore. So we're going to have a system that is disjointed again. Is the Gold Coast going to be thrown another curveball with a technology that becomes out of date before it's even deployed? Connecticut Bus Company already has problems, and most of you would see some of the yellow buses that are still running around. Some of those have got 3 million kilometres on them. Now, why is Kinetic being given funding to improve our bus lines? When you consider some of our school kids are running around in those yellow buses that have got so many kilometres on them and are so old that they should have been decommissioned years ago, why isn't Kinetic being given funding for not only supporting the bus replenishrisation, but also paying drivers properly? This is where Bailey's got to step up to the mark. He shouldn't be messing around with Geely because it's not his business. Geely operates separately. It's not Bailey's call. And Michael's been around in government the same as I have for a long, long time. We all know how it works. It's like talking about the heavy railway. That goes back to Wayne Ross's days. Wayne Cross got up in front of myself and many others in government in 1996 and said, I'm going to have heavy rail connecting the airports. Now when you talk about the Olympics and you have to connect heavy rail, we're not just talking about people, we're talking about over 1,000 containers of equipment that comes in. Not only athletes' equipment, broadcasters ship in 2.5 or over 200 containers of broadcast equipment. You need all 3 airports, which includes Gold Coast Airport, Brisbane Airport and Wellcamp, working at maximum capacity for 3 weeks. Now the other issue I want to raise with you, and this is one of the key issues that comes up with the light rail debate also. We all talk about gridlock. Anybody that's driven around this coast or been on a bus knows about gridlock. This is the only city in the world without an intelligent traffic system. None of these traffic lights are linked. Why hasn't it been done? And what's the motive for the lack of support by the Gold Coast City Council, TMR, Main Roads and all of the agencies, considering we've got the Olympic Games here in 12 years. It's now time to push these projects forward with Infrastructure Australia and get them rolling. But I raised this issue with light rail. Who's going to supply this thing? Because it's definitely not Bombardier. And I cannot see how the Gold Coast can accept that we are going to get a second-rate solution that is going to be disjointed and we're going to miss out again. Ron Clark is the architect of this mess, and really that's where the foot of the blame lies.
Well, the blame goes on a long way after him. I mean, he may have kicked it off, but there's been an awful lot going on since then. So, we've got another question over here. Thank you, Mark.
Hi, my name's Chris. I'm just more of a suggestion than a question. I know Michael Hart is on the wrong side of politics or us getting anywhere. He tries his hardest to get Mark Bartley here. Let's face it, Mark Bartley's never going to come.
Mark doesn't confirm it.
No. So why don't we charter a whole heap of buses and go down to his office and protest?
Now you're talking. Okay. We have been getting together the first Saturday of every month. And, you know, people they supported to start with, but it's waned. However, there are a whole lot of other community groups, not the ones I mentioned, but heaps of others that want to support us. There are actually possibly people that will come from Brisbane and march with us. So we need to stand up, and people have people have differences. But this is one thing we all agree upon. This is a waste of taxpayers' money. We are not getting people standing up for us in the way we need it to be done. We are not getting people that are actually, well, I've suffered attacks myself. So we are not getting the support that we need, and we need to step forward and get behind it, scan those codes, because we are building it, and there are more and more people coming on board. It doesn't look as big tonight, but I can guarantee there's a lot of people about to join us. So we will be marching, but we will be marching on Bailey. We have been in multiple meetings with TMR. We've been in meetings with TMR Gold Coast as well. And my last phone call to them was, oh, he's a bit busy, the Ombudsman's on the phone doing. So we are getting somewhere, because we, the people, are standing up and doing it. Does anyone?
Just the venue, Pirate Park. I mean, I think people got quite go. I've seen people from Burley who have driven down there, and everyone's marked left, and they're not sure where it is, etc. I mean, I'm passionate about koalas at Burley. I live right in Burley. I walk out there, I swim Burley Beach all the time. To me, Justin's Park, that is where that light rail stops for stage 3, right in front of the bowls course there. For all the people who want to save the Southern Oceans, you've got to stop it there. Once it gets anywhere near Telebudger Creek, it's a done deal for you guys, and it's a done deal for the koalas. where we should be having those big meetings, I personally think, is Justice Park. It's easy to get a bus there. I know parking is really difficult in Burleigh, but, you know, I'd be willing to help stage those meetings. I would be willing to help stage those meetings every Saturday at Burleigh.
This is what it comes down to, the coordination. We need people to be a part of the committee. You know, some of us are getting a bit worn out, and some of us have suffered a tax, and it's taxing. You know, you have to let all these things go by, and then stand up and do it again, rather than fight back, because we don't want to be involved in the nitty-gritty of minor politics. We want to do what you have to do, and if Michael can get Mark Bailey there, well, good, that'd be great. But we take us to Mark Bailey.
Can I just add one further comment? Government signs a contract. If government signs a contract, then it's not allowing the ability to control the budget. Right? We signed up for something at 700. It was originally 690. It's now 1.2 billion, and that's all. Right? So, where was the failure within the organisation, within the ministers, within the opposition, whoever it happens to be, that we're not building the budget, instead we're giving blank cheques? Now, this is really serious across the country. Right? The finances the government got across the country are pretty woeful. One phrase I've used that we're now, you've heard about robo-debt, and all the things that happen to everyday people. Well, guess what? Robo-bill is screwing the taxpayers. And so I've actually looked at this, Michael, and everyone else. I'm taking against it.
I'm happy to listen.
Yeah, but we have this problem where we are not controlling our spending. And we know what happens to countries that don't do that, and companies, and people. So there's a really important question here. If justification was not provided in the first place and sufficient, why should the contract have standing? And if it was given and has standing, the question is, where was the failure that should be held responsible?
The government changed the contract, that's what.
Well, then we look at the reasons for changing contracts.
They changed the industrial conditions in the contract, and that caused a blowout of $500 million.
500 million? Okay, so I'll go back to my question though. Why was there an allowance, having agreed a contract, not to have controls upon escalation? And
there is, but the government changed the contract. That's my point. Yeah, I'm happy to take any other questions and on that head off. So if anybody's got any other questions, happy to answer.
Question, Michael, saying you're on the fence. My name's Gordon Green. I've lived here for 43 years. Michael, why is it that Mark Bailey, every time you start talking about the light rail, says, Michael Hart's got an interest in a business that runs along Reedy Creek Road. We're not going to run the railway, the tramway of Reedy Creek Station. Full stop. He doesn't want to listen to the rest of it. Well, I don't care whether you've got a business in that area, that's your business. And I couldn't see that you were going to benefit from the tram running past it. But I mean, it just shows that this man sort of dwells on the little things. I'm involved, or have been involved with two other groups in recent years. One was the problem of the development out on Talabadgera Creek where the government wanted Japanese companies to build a lake on the floodplain. Just imagine what would have happened out there in February last year. And that happened. 93 houses built around a lake that was going to draw water and run water back into the creek. That was one thing.
And that's a great point, Gordon. Community action stopped that.
That's right.
That's correct.
Give that man the microphone for a second.
The second point I make is that 27th of February last year, abnormally heavy rains flooded North Palm Beach and the northern end of Illinois. Now, a lot of people are saying, it was all to do with the way the other part okay. The thing is that Bailey has been asked repeatedly, in writing and in press demand, really, limited as they may be, to come down and address the people who have been severely impacted. You know, people who had their houses knocked down because they couldn't be renovated. Some of these people are back now, but a lot of damage around the area. So that's number two. And number three is this, that he's been on, this has been going on for years and years and years, and he sits up there in his office and says, I am interested in what's going on here, I'm not interested in what's going on the Gold Coast. Well, he put in the bulletin last week, he's an old Broadbeach boy. I understand he has interest in Broadbeach, so personal interest there these days. Why the hell can't we get this man to come now? I believe that the Premier should be asked to get him to come here. No ifs, buts, maybes. Turn up, have a public meeting and turn up and answer questions. And if that's not prepared to happen, let's talk to the Premier. That's it. So I'm very serious.
Well said. I can tell you now that is being investigated right now because the Premier has been asked on multiple occasions. She's also received Action Network newsletters. There are multiple instances where they have been requested to act and intervene in what Mark Bailey is doing, and Stephen Miles, because we're not just talking Mark Bailey here. Stephen Miles is the Minister for Local Government and Planning. Now, I want to ask one thing. Karen Andrews put out an email after the meeting that Michael, Karen, Daphne and Laura didn't make. And it was a really good email, actually. But one key point that rings true to everyone that I've ever spoken to was that business case for Gold Coast Light Rail extension or heavy rail extension from Varsity Lakes to Gold Coast Airport be proceeded with and prior to the business case for Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 4 and the construction of the Gold Coast heavy rail extension from Varsity Lakes to Gold Coast Airport precede any construction of further light rail. Now, Michael, can you give me your response?
Gee, I wasn't expecting this to happen. I don't personally agree with heavy rail to the airport. As I said in the email back to you when you asked me this question, but I'm here to represent the 50,000 people who live in my electorate. I heard what 600 people said at the meeting last week. They want it, so I'm pushing for it.
But you don't.
I just said, I'm here to represent the people, and I'm representing the people and suggesting to the government that's what should happen. I don't personally agree with that. That's just my opinion, but I'm here to represent you people.
Right, okay then. Does that mean that we can have your support in ongoing activities?
Do you have my support for ongoing activities?
Yes. We
absolutely, but I would not encourage you to go and tie yourself to a bulldozer or a tree or any of those really radical ideas. Work with your local representatives, work together, get as many people to these meetings as we can, and show this government we're serious about stopping this thing, or at least reviewing the whole thing in the future, because that's what needs to happen. There needs to be real consultation and a real look at all the possible alternatives.
Michael, we couldn't even get all the councillors to come.
I'm not going to speak for anybody else, Daphne, you know I have.
Yes, definitely, I know, and that's wonderful. And we're very 14 councillors, and we have one. Glad you
Michael, may I just ask you a question? Because I thought that what you said was right. You're here as a representative. Your personal view is not relevant. I agree with that. But you see a group of people here, like you correct me if I'm wrong, are part of your electorate. So would you take their concerns that you've heard tonight, not your personal opinion, would you take their concerns to the appropriate authorities in government?
Absolutely. Look, the resolutions that were put up there tonight were very, very similar, if not exactly the same, as the resolutions that we moved 2 weeks ago. they have already been given to the Premier and the Transport Minister. I tell you, when the people that were at that meeting who signed the letters, I stood in Parliament Capital, my Facebook page, I waved them around and I did personally deliver those to the Premier and the Transport Minister the next week. They have those resolutions. So look, I want to work with you guys. I have to work with anybody. I work with Kath. It's all good. We just need to work together to try and get this thing reevaluated.
And I would like to shake your hand on that. Michael, I'd like to look you in the eye and shake your hand on that. And let's work together.
Yay!
Any other questions before I go ahead?
There's a chance to say.
Last
question.
I spoke to Kath earlier in the week about the need for the information which these learned gentlemen over here presented twice about this project. And I believe that that is very, very important, and it is very emphatic in the financial disaster that this thing could be. Now, Tom Tate rabbits on all the time about, oh, we've got to have the airport because the fans coming up from the airport because the people are here for the Olympic Games. That's irrelevant. That's the thing that goes to him. Tourism is number one. Destroying the southern Gold Coast, he is not interested in, he doesn't want to even come down here, But the thing about it is, I believe that the best way that we could go forward from here is to get all of the people that are prepared to do these very valuable and very thoughtful presentations, get them together with a special meeting of the political people around the place and Bailey and Premier if need be. Let's get a fair dinkum business proposal sort of being reviewed, torn apart, and then let us get down and say whether we do what's got to be done, and that is look at alternatives.
We're very happy to hold an information night, but we can only give you the information the government gives you. And they give us, believe it or not, even as a state member of Parliament, they give us very limited information. So I sent an email to TMR this morning. I said, I'm going to a meeting tonight. I'd like the current plans of exactly where we are, because the Minister promised there would be 2 lanes either way. So how does that affect parking? How does it affect people's houses, access to, fro? Does that still mean that we have 2 lots of light rail going through the middle of Parliament under the present plan? Exactly where do we stand there? The response, well, we haven't worked it out yet. We're still planning. So that's where we are. So we're happy to hold information nights, but we can only give you, we'll only give you the facts and the reality and what we know.
What Michael is talking about there, John Holland themselves in stage 3 will freely tell you the design phase is only 90% complete. And they're building it. Now I know there's going to be wiggle room, but it's wiggle room to wiggle around our communities, and we need to be awake and watching.
Stand here, Dove.
Just a super quick question. How long have we got to cease stage 4? Have we got a cut-off date?
As long as there's no funding.
There is no federal funding. Stage 4 is not funded from a federal arrangement right now, and we are calling for investigations into Infrastructure Australia and Catherine King. And the Commonwealth Ombudsman is currently conducting an investigation. But that Action Network newsletter and the e-petition, they go to Catherine King. Make sure you share them. There's only 2 days for that e-petition. We lost days because the site was down. We really need to make it happen. And there's a lady here who's been waiting patiently.
Sorry, I just want to say that is there any chance that the contract, I know it's been awarded for stage 3, to be rescinded, pop the money, pop it, whatever it takes to just sort of say, look, we've made a mistake. We need to go west.
Yep.
From Broadbeach, so I just sort of feel that if it gets down to Burleigh, you're getting in such a rabbit hole of an area, there's no...
It's a nightmare.
It won't be enough room for the buses to continue from that place, because you're in such a confined small area, whereas in Broad Beach it's already set up. So if it's going to cost whatever it needs to cost to pay out the contractors,
This is what my
this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like this other gentleman said,
Yeah,
the
Dr.
feasibility is all out the window, and was it?
It's not been done. It's not been conducted properly, and there are avenues that we're looking into. They say it's a done deal. So was the French submarine deal. So here's Mike McGovern.
I think, just to put it a really simple point, a commercial contract, why should that take precedence over the good of the people?
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's what we're doing. There's been this assumption that something signed with a company has more validity, more justice, more worth than the representation of the people. Now, you might remember that Victoria cancelled the ring road, I think it was, or something down there. They cancelled the contract, there was a compensation, right? But the damage by going ahead would have been far greater than the cost of the compensation. That's why they did it. There's no reason why we can't do that sort of thing. And also, what you would sensibly do, you would say, look, we don't really want it here anymore, right? But we do have another job. And if you want to go to that, and if you want to have thoughts in the future, of course, it would be nice to be able. I mean, government is the person spending the money. So how come the people taking the money charge?
I'd just like to raise this awareness a little bit higher. We're talking about state issues. We are talking about dealing with the Commonwealth Ombudsman. But there's two basic things that tie into a very important reality, and that is the market and money. The reason why Australia hasn't fallen into recession over the last, 2 or 3 decades is because we've had such a massive migration of immigrants coming into the country. And I'm not being critical of the immigrants at all. I'm just pointing out that the government hasn't really faced the economic issues that face this country. They've avoided it by bringing in people with their will to keep us back in money. They drive the market, those people, those extra people come in, and the developers are very happy to satisfy the demand that those people create. The other part of that is, for the last 15 years, the governments of all colours have avoided bringing into law the second tranche of money laundering laws that are going to prohibit free access to money that is not regulated by real estate agents, lawyers and accountants. And the Gold Coast is a really good example of what has happened as a result of that. So the issues that we're dealing with here, they're not just local issues. They're a result of what's happening at a national level. And I'd just like to second what that gentleman said about, let's go and see Mark Bailey. Let's not go to Mark Bailey's office. Let's get on the bus and go to Mark Bailey's home. We have to stop. People have to stop being nice, well-behaved. No. What? Arrested for what? About it. We need to take the politics into account as well, but we need to look at what's driving this process.
On that note, we're going to wind up. And I do agree that the Gold Coast Light Rail is one example of so many things going wrong, and we need to be able to hold our government to account to a higher standard than we are currently getting, and we need to stand up and let them know, we see you. We've got lawyers, we're working on it. We need to make sure that we keep working towards getting integrity and transparency across all levels of government. And I'll leave you with that note, and thank you very much for coming tonight.